So there was a lot of news in AI, but we're going to break it up. We're going to talk about Devin first. So we're going to talk about Devin. And then we're going to talk about AI as a whole. There's some stuff coming out from Twitter there about some of that happening. And just some other AI news. But we're going to talk about Devin first specifically before we talk about other machine learning stuff. And then there's actually was quite a bit in the open source and other software related news that happened this week. So like I said, we have a ton of stuff to cover. We are not going to cover classic you'd have expected that VR on April 1st. Yeah. Yes, me too. If it was April 1st, I would have as well. So we have a lot of stuff to cover. We are not going to cover the classic cloud news because the classic cloud news has I didn't see anything really big. I didn't see anything like terribly expansive there. And so we're going to kind of skirt around it for this week because, again, nothing major there. And there was just so much to cover. So we're going to talk about Devin. All of you probably know Devin at this point, and Devin is the topic we're going to talk about. Devin was released with a lot of, basically a lot of fear around developers. And I'm here to maybe help with that a little bit and give you guys my perspective on Devin. Devin is an AI, much like many of the coding AIs that we found or have today, which is geared towards beating a benchmark. Now, we hold the AI games at least once a year. We can do it again this summer if we'd like to hold the summer games. And it's where we actually test AIs against real world challenges and see how they do. We've tested a lot of AIs from Copilot and ChatGPT, who have done the best previously, to Code Whisperer, StarCoder, and all these other ones. And a lot of these, and one of the things the reasons I bring this up is a lot of these, like StarCoder, do just as well as ChatGPT in the benchmarks because you can design something for benchmarks. This is why I tell you with like performance of databases, you don't just rely on benchmarks because benchmarks are designed, or things can be designed for a benchmark. In the case of this, what they talk about when they're talking about benchmarks is this software engineering benchmark, this SWE benchmark. And it's a benchmark of finely curated things for them to do. And there's this assisted and unassisted. And you can see that the current record holder is at almost 5%. But I can tell you from using both of these that GPT-4 outdoes Cloud 2 easily in day-to-day practical use. I can tell you that Llama's not even close. The 7 billion. I haven't used the 13 billion. The Llama isn't even close to ChatGPT 4. Okay, at its measly 1.4. I have used these extensively. I haven't used Cloud 2 extensively. I have Llama and GPT-4 extensively. Okay, so my statement is that a benchmark is a benchmark. And you can make things to pass benchmarks. You can teach kids to pass tests without actually understanding math. It's a thing that happens. Okay? So, first thing about the fear, this is a benchmark. It's a finely crafted set. They are tested on a random 25% of the data set. A couple interesting things to note here. I don't see Devin here. So if you want it to be official, you have to submit it to the SWE bench team. Now, maybe it's just caught in some legal tape. I don't know. But if I was Devin and I thought that they would accept my run, I thought that they would accept it, I would expect it to be here before I made my announcement. In fact, I would insist that we hold back our announcement until I was here. And I don't see it here. I don't know what that means. I'm not saying they didn't do it. I'm saying that's a little fishy. There's also other things inside of this that I want to draw our attentions to. If you go and watch Cognition's thing, if you actually watch their YouTube video, I think I have it muted. There are things that don't make sense to me in this about Devin. There are things that you wouldn't focus on as the creator of Devin. So, Oculus, just to be clear, the SWE benchmark is an open data set. You can go get it. You 100% can just go get the entire data set. Okay? So, the thing that I also want to stress is I've looked at these data sets, and unfortunately, the reason in our testing we don't use data sets, because we've actually talked about it in our AI games. The reason we don't use data sets is because they are too good at the data sets. They're too good. Every single one of them admit to using the data sets. And now what they'll do is they say, we only used half of the data set to test or to train. And then we used a quarter of it that we didn't use, but there are a lot of the same style of problems written in the same style of manner, because this was a curated list of GitHub repositories with commits fixing the problems, with tests fixing those problems. So it's very static, curated lists of real world problems. The same with all the other data sets out there. So you can absolutely, and they absolutely train their AIs to deal with this. The other thing that's a little bit weird, and I don't want to call this Google-esque, but there are things through this you don't make for your AI because you don't care. Okay, so they have this UI here. We're going to make this full screen. All right. Why does it have a web browser? Why does it have a UI of a web? This doesn't look like a real thing people are doing, just to be honest. You know how much code would have to go in this to make a browser, and then it would have to have vision? Or is it just reading the DOM? Because if it's just reading the DOM, it doesn't actually need the whole browser, right? So this is really fishy to me. To be honest, this is just really straight up fishy. This looks like a finely curated video to get hype, to get more money. I'm not saying that they don't have an AI that does some of these things. This is weird. This is just downright weird. Another weird thing is they say that it was unassisted, but the guy keeps chatting with the AI throughout the whole thing. So it's obviously assisted. It keeps answering questions about it. Another weird thing that I found that I wouldn't do if I was making an AI is, okay. Also this, don't blur your API keys out. Just go reset them. Just that's fine. You're doing a demo. It looks weird. Okay. This. They make a point of stating that it put a print statement in the code. Why does the AI need that? If your whole thing is that it can reason about the code, what does it need the print statement for? The print statement for humans is to reason about the code, right? So are they programming in the flaws of humans? Right. Why does it do printf's debugging? Is my question. If it needs that, it's not any better than we are, to be frankly honest. If you're trying to impress on me that this is good, I don't believe it. I think it's bad. Not printf debugging. I like printf debugging. I like printf debugging. This is not me attacking printf debugging because it helps you understand what's happening without pausing the execution of an application. And that can be really good. So I say all of this because if you are worried about Devin, if you are worried about this, they are freaking hiring software engineers. If Devin was half as good as what they thought that they had at this point, Devin would not be hiring software engineers. Cognition. Obviously, Devin can't hire. Cognition, the company that owns the technology. So I say this to alleviate some stress that people could be having. If I have seen anything from these, again, I've already, and if you don't believe me about the benchmarking, I can rerun I can do a mini summer games of the AIs. I haven't seen them progress that much, but if it would help people, I can do a summer games of the AIs and show you what I mean, where ChatGPT 4 here is way better than Llama. Way better. Even though Llama scores better, in practical use, GPT-4 is better by far. Like this is, I wouldn't even say the rules switched. I would say like this is like 10-1 better. And other people on the channel that have been around for longer can attest to this. Llama's 7 billion was not near what GPT-4 was doing. So the benchmarks just don't tell a good story. And yes, they got 12%. I think they got 12% in the assisted. 12%. True. Maybe Devin takes so much electricity it's actually cheaper to hire humans. That's a possibility. It's just cheaper to hire humans. We're more efficient. We're more efficient. One Star Coder was fantastically epic. And you know, I'm going to tell you guys the story just because it emphasizes something. When One Star Coder was first released, it scored just as well as ChatGPT 3.5, or actually a little bit better on some of these benchmarks. So One Star Coder scored pretty well on benchmarks, okay? It literally hallucinated a very spicy love story when it couldn't answer the problem. Okay? This was a while ago. To be granted. This was before GPT-4 was out. But I'm just giving you an idea of what those benchmarks mean. They don't mean as much as people give them credit for. They mean a lot to investors. If you're an investor, they probably have done something. Although if I was an investor, I would be wary because there were so many red flags in that video that I doubt a lot of things. You have a small team focused on writing an AI. Not only did you teach it to do vision to read a DOM of documentation, you taught it to use the command line and to write code and to debug code, which is, I mean, again, really cool and interesting if it works. And again, printf debugging, I think, is a bad way. To be honest, they should be able to analyze and understand the flow of code. This is an entire thing that I have a problem with is we seem to want to replicate humans when we could do better than humans. We seem to be trying to replicate humans when the awesome part about computers is that they don't have our problems. And so I don't know why we're doing so much work to replicate that. And I love machine learning. That's why we're going to learn more about it. I just think that we're missing the point. Okay. That's my Devin rant. I don't know. How are people feeling about Devin? I think if you're a junior, you have a rougher time now. I honestly think as a junior, what these tools are going to do is it's going to make senior and intermediate engineers faster and more efficient, meaning fewer are needed. which are going to mean that fewer junior engineers. Those are probably going to be the ones that get the short end of the staff because they're not usually nearly as productive as a intermediate or senior level engineer. And so when you can make those people more productive, the need for juniors, and so if you're a junior and you're just getting into the place, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult because these tools, I think, can make people more productive or are getting close to being able to really make us more productive. I actually think that Copilot's at a place where I think I'm more productive with it, probably. That's hard to judge. I'd love if we came up with a test to judge how productive I am. It's hard to judge, but I do think that it's at a point where it could be, it's a really good autocomplete. It's a really good autocomplete. Russell, I'm with you. I'm with you on, I'm not sure. Like I said, I would love to be able to judge. I'd love to think of a test. Maybe an AI can come up with a test for me. Because, so this is my problem. This is my problem with a test. If I do something unknown, that's like the only way to actually test this. I have to do something I don't know how to do. And the problem with that is I have to have two things of similar difficulty that I don't know how to do. Because I have to do it once without the AI and then once with the AI, but it can't be the same thing because if it's the same thing, I already know how to do it. But if I don't know what it is and I don't know how to do it, then how do I know that they're roughly the same difficulty and should roughly take the same amount of time? It's a hard problem. And this is why I say I think that ChatGPT / Copilot does make me more productive. But you're right, it gets in my way a lot of the time. And this is why I also don't think juniors should use it, because it's hard to know when it's leading you astray, because sometimes it lies very convincingly, very convincingly.